building penetration and great propagation. And the other respondents were just focused on the build out of band 14 as a frequency. However, since it is not a frequency that is prolific today, their estimates were anywhere from 10 to 20 years before they were going to be able to get band 14 fully stood up throughout the US. AT&T offered to be able to greatly expedite the build out of band 14, looking to have it built out within a 5-year time frame based on our ability to leverage our current wireless infrastructure, in addition to new builds that are required with each state. So the other very unique thing is that AT&T committed to have the core principles of priority and preemption, which identify public responders and empower them to be able to have access to the network more readily, not only within that band 14 spectrum, but across all spectrums that AT&T has in its LTE network today. What that does is empowered FirstNet and first responders to immediately start taking advantage of these core functions, because as we know, emergencies don't wait on anyone. So in March of 2017, AT&T was awarded the bid, and we proceeded in working with every state on a 5-year build-out plan. These plans were designed to, again, define where band 14 would go up, any new towers that would be required for their state, and anything that was specific to a geography with respect to the build-outs of FirstNet. The states were then allowed to opt in or opt out of this 5-year plan, and we are thrilled that all 50 states opted into the FirstNet network build, and in all 50 states, this build is currently active and ongoing. And we empowered priority and preemption across all of our other bands by the end of 2017. So as of 2018, FirstNet is an active network. It does meet the requirements set out by the RFP, as well as is in a full build mode for that additional spectrum of band 14, which will be dedicated to our public safety community. So where are we now? We're just approaching the fourth quarter of 2018. We've already seen nearly 1,500 public safety agencies make the switch to FirstNet. As I mentioned, all 50 states, as well as Puerto Rico and our territories, have opted into the FirstNet network. So active build-outs are taking place in all 50 states. And we have more than 120,000 FirstNet connections and growing day by day. So it is a network, and subscriber growth is already happening at a fairly rapid pace. When we talk about FirstNet connections, what are those FirstNet connections? Well, I'd reference us back to the very first slide we saw with PCS Mobile, right? It is all of the mobile endpoints that touch a first responder and, again, the communities that support them. So this is their in-vehicle routers, their mobile computing, their body cameras, their phones, their tablets, any type of endpoint connected device that can reach out to the internet is a appropriate connection to FirstNet. So as you look at your agency and organization, you will have many different endpoints which are potentially eligible for service. We always recommend that we try to take on each endpoint individually, understand the scope of where you guys are today, what technology you have in place, and PCS Mobile is a wonderful partner that you have trusted for many years that can really help guide you through this process as a FirstNet dealer. Being a FirstNet dealer, they will also have the ability to bring in AT&T and FirstNet dedicated resources to assist as we step beyond any capabilities that are maybe futures, or as you guys look at device refreshes that may extend beyond the devices that PCS Mobile focuses on primarily. So again, let's talk about priority and preemption and really understand this is a very core component of FirstNet and why it isn't so important. So priority and preemption, or as we refer to it, first priority will remove or reassign lower priority users within the bands of communication to ensure first responders are going to maintain access to their connections. And this is a software-defined network, so these allocations and preemptive and priority capabilities are happening in near real time with no engagement from an agency. Again, the network is intelligent enough, and through our FirstNet qualification and account setup, knows if you are a first responder and what appropriate priority to assign to your devices. The other thing that's really important to note is that, you know, this priority and preemption capabilities are equally as effective during a crisis as just during routine tasks in congested areas. So as you guys are supporting large-scale events in your community, you may notice that data connections would slow for you in a normal commercial environment. And again, that has to do with the fact that the network can't define or identify you as a first responder. With FirstNet rate plans, you will be identified, you will have first access to network resources, as well as the ability to preempt other calls down to lower bands of communication so that your connections and data transactions and voice transactions are taking place at a priority level. Kind of a basic analogy I like to use for explaining priority and preemption would be priority is like going to a busy restaurant with a long waiting list to be seated, and your name would go to the very top of the list. You would be the very next person to receive a table or resources for that restaurant. Preemption would be as you arrive at that very busy restaurant and no tables are available, they will actually ask someone to get up and leave the table so that you have the ability to immediately begin utilizing those resources. So hopefully that's a good analogy for everyone on how to think about the power of priority and preemptive capabilities. So the remaining portions of the RFP that AT&T was required to develop and have plans for within the RFP really kind of boil down into these 5 categories or pillars of FirstNet. So they are surrounding your security, the coverage build-outs, purpose-built devices, control mechanisms, and obviously innovation. And so these are the core components that we really strive for, and I'm going to go through and help identify some of the larger differentiators that fall within these categories. But before I do so, I want to kind of take and give you guys some key terms that you may hear as you further discussions around FirstNet, and hopefully give you guys a better understanding of what these terms mean and as it relates to how you will potentially move forward with a FirstNet solution. So first and foremost, you heard me mention at the beginning of the call that AT&T has empowered priority and preemption throughout our current commercial LTE bands of communication. And we do have the ability on a commercial AT&T SIM to denote and identify a first responder primary eligible user and still provide priority and preemption capabilities. However, in April of this year, we did launch the dedicated core of FirstNet, and this is, again, a new brain, if you will, to the network that completely controls all traffic that is associated with FirstNet users. And we have a defined or new FirstNet SIM that would go into your mobile devices that would gain or give you access to that new dedicated core for FirstNet. Depending on your life cycle of devices, where they fit within their capabilities and how they communicate and connect with the new FirstNet network, you may not immediately go on to FirstNet SIMs. Again, we would work with you to understand your current technology, current available equipment, to understand whether a AT&T commercial SIM or a FirstNet SIM is going to be best suited for your migration to FirstNet. And you can mix and match dependent, again, on the endpoint devices and how they associate to the network. First priority, again, is priority and preemption, but this is priority and preemption within the new FirstNet core, and it does have some enhanced capabilities that for our first responder and extended primary community. So the first I would identify for you is the ability to have multiple levels of priority. So if you have a large scale event versus everyone having in your first responder community the same level of priority, you have the ability to define within a local control web portal 5 different levels of priority, so that you can even distinguish among your own who potentially needs to have the highest priority on network for any given event. First priority and the FirstNet core also is what empowers uplift. So generally speaking, anytime we're working with a client that is in that extended primary category, we're going to be looking to make sure that they go on to the FirstNet core with a FirstNet SIM so that they have the ability to be uplifted to priority levels when an event or incident is taking place. The next major term that's important to note is FirstNet ready devices. So FirstNet ready devices have 2 prongs or 2 main points to them. The first would be that they have been certified and cleared all of the security requirements, which are more intense than just a traditional commercial certification, that they have reached that level of certification for the FirstNet core. In addition, FirstNet ready devices have the ability to communicate with the new Band 14 spectrum that is currently in build out in all 50 states. Since Band 14 was not a prolific band, you will note that there are a limited number of FirstNet ready devices. However, they are continuing to grow day by day, and a little later on in the presentation, I'll give you guys examples of those devices that have reached that FirstNet ready certification. You'll also note that we have many devices that we refer to as FirstNet capable. That would mean that they have passed the security requirements for the FirstNet network, but do not have Band 14 as an available spectrum in which they can talk to. Again, those devices would still be able to provide priority and preemption. However, they would not be able to communicate with that new Band 14 added spectrum, or HOV lane, if you will, for our public safety communities. Enhanced push-to-talk. This is a push-to-talk or direct connect type of application we highly recommend for all of our users who are taking advantage of FirstNet. It's a very low-cost solution on a monthly basis, but can empower interoperability across jurisdictions, and is a great platform for instant communication capabilities that are most effective during crisis scenarios when we need to broadcast communicate with multiple individuals at one time, who may not all be on the same LMR frequency. So we always highly recommend that anytime you're getting a device that does have an enhanced push-to-talk capability, that you do include that in your plan. That will only proliferate and make interoperability that much easier for you right out of the gates. There's an incident management portal, a local control portal, many capabilities surrounding our security operations and deployables. And as we go into each of these core principles, I will dive in on those further. So let's just briefly talk about security, what makes the FirstNet core different. So again, it does have higher levels of end-to-end encryption than are required today for commercial networks. This is to protect the communications that are taking place between our public safety entities. We do have a dedicated security operations center with over 100 dedicated professionals that are constantly monitoring traffic on the network to ensure that if there are any suspected activity, that we are on top of it immediately. We also offer private mobile connections or custom APNs. So for any of your maybe in-vehicle routers that are currently interacting in a private mobile connection environment, AT&T has the ability to mirror that. We cannot bring prior mobile connections from other carriers or even an AT&T private mobile connection. It does have to be rebuilt for the FirstNet network, but that again is relative to the security requirements and the enhancements that are a part of this network that were requested as a part of the RFP. Again, you can, if you're interacting with NetMotion or any other VPN services, those are all already certified and ready to go within the FirstNet environment. We offer single sign-on capabilities for access into database systems that your end users may be needing to gain access to. And obviously, we fully support any of your managed or mobility M2M solutions such as AirWatch, Mobile Iron. So any of those platforms that you guys have been interacting with today in your commercial environment can absolutely be carried with you as you make the switch to the dedicated FirstNet network. The coverage, I'm sure this is one that is of high priority for most, and want to know more about what's going on from a coverage perspective. And so I'm going to cover coverage, our deployable program, in a bit more detail. So the coverage build-outs, again, as I mentioned, in every state, there is a 5-year plan for development. We are actively out there climbing towers, adding band 14, and even including new spectrum. So the visual image that is up right now is the estimate of what the network will look like at the end of the 5-year period. You can see the dark blue areas are the build-outs of the band 14 spectrum, going into large metropolitan areas as well as rural communities that may not be serviced at all today. A couple of really quick notes to mention about band 14. Again, band 14 is a very high quality spectrum that was dedicated for the FirstNet network. And we plan to have it fully deployed over the next 5 years. We will continue to deploy further, but this meets that at that 5-year mark, we will meet the requirement from the FirstNet Authority associated with having 95% or more of the US population covered by band 14 access. Again, these are already in place. They are already going up. We have more than 1,000 new site builds that are planned across the country to help propagate band 14 and to close coverage gaps which were not currently offered from standard commercial carriers. So a very exciting time for first responders as well as users in totality, right? Being able to really have larger capacity to be able to support the continuing and growing need for data access and real-time information at our fingertips to those who support us in times of crisis. But as you know, there are some topography and geographic locations which really are just not suitable for cell tower builds. So as a part of the RFP, we have dedicated 72 dedicated deployables or SATCOLTs, which would be a cell on wheel or cell on light truck with satellite backhaul. And those 72 resources are strategically deployed throughout the US for the ability to come in and stand in the gap when coverage is not there, but an incident is taking place in a location in which cellular communication is required. The deployable resources that are associated with FirstNet service are 100% dedicated to our FirstNet clients. So if you're in an incident, you have not yet made a switch to FirstNet on any of your mobile devices, and then unfortunately we don't have the ability to call upon those dedicated FirstNet resources. However, AT&T has a cache of over 250 deployable resources just through our national disaster recovery teams. Those are absolutely accessible to the community if you have not yet made a transition to FirstNet. I'd also note that if you guys are if there are any planned events, 30 days notice for a planned event, and it is not conflicting with one that had already previously been connected, then you would have the ability to work and have those deployables out for some testing in your areas. So finally, let's talk a little bit more about the service plans and wireless devices that are associated with FirstNet service. So FirstNet service, you have unlimited talk, text plans, as well as unlimited pool and M2M or machine-to-machine data plans. And they include North America roaming That includes Canada and Mexico, as well as roaming in the Pacific territories. Similar to commercial plans, if you were planning to go outside of the continental North American locations, you do have the ability to get your international day pass plans and things of that nature. But included are already the Canada and Mexico roaming, which is a really great added benefit. Also, FirstNet service is going to be available to you on familiar contracts. So we are on the NASPO, formerly known as WISCA. We also have NPP Gov, GSA for our federal clients, as well as group purchasing organizations that really align most often to our healthcare extended primary community. And then finally, custom state contracts. So our contracting team has worked with each state to get the FirstNet rate plans available for you. So you'll have many options from a contracting perspective and extremely favorable pricing on all of these contract vehicles. We talk about wireless devices. Again, these are the endpoints that would connect to FirstNet service, which include phones, tablets, in-vehicle routers, and we also have a large portfolio of accessories to associate and make sure that these devices are deployed in the most effective manner. So let's go back to that term of FirstNet ready. Right now, we have over 10 FirstNet ready devices that have come into the portfolio. Just announced last week the new devices from Apple. So their new iPhone XS Max and XS are FirstNet ready, meaning that they will have band 14 spectrum available to them. Samsung also has their newest device available in the Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus, as well as their Note 9. LG has the Thin Q device that is FirstNet ready. And then Sonum. So if you've not interacted with Sonum yet, this is a very, very wonderful device, especially for those who are rugged on their devices and are looking to leverage those enhanced push-to-talk capabilities, as it actually has a side button to empower and make that instant communication capability a little bit more familiar with how you would traditionally operate a radio. The Sonum devices are wonderful. And we're some of the first to really hit that FirstNet ready certifications. But you'll also note that there are, you've got a Moto phone, some additional older Samsung devices, as well as, again, another very purpose-built device by Motorola, the Lex. So again, we can help you in exploring these devices and which might make the most sense for you as you look at a transition to FirstNet. But keep in mind, there's also a ton of devices that are FirstNet capable. So they can't interact with band 14 spectrum, which is still being built out. But if you're currently using one of these devices, we can look at a bring your own device environment where we unlock the device and transition it over to FirstNet service. So you do have a large, familiar allotment of phones in which you could interact with. From an Apple perspective, anything that is an iPhone 6 or newer is FirstNet capable. Samsung back to their S8 devices and some prior devices from Samsung, as well as Kyocera and LG. From a tablet perspective, we have not seen any tablets hit FirstNet ready certification yet, so none are able to communicate with the new band 14 spectrum, but we do have a wide variety that are FirstNet capable, meaning that they can go onto the FirstNet core, but again, would not be able to today communicate with any type of band 14 engagement. When we're looking at in-vehicle routers, we've definitely seen a lot of movement in this space over the coming months. So Cradlepoint has released their MC400 modular modem that can connect to their Cradlepoint's IBR 900. That would then meet that FirstNet ready specification, having the band 14 accessible component. Sierra Wireless also has two modems that are now FirstNet ready, which would be their MP70 and their NG90. Again, these devices vary just in the number of ports. And again, PCS Mobile would be a great organization in which to really dive in deep with you guys on these available modems and take a look at what might work best for either a device refresh or how to augment current solutions or modems that you currently have in place. And then your Nighthawk LTE mobile router, this is your standard hotspot. It is, again, FirstNet ready and available to communicate with band 14. And then finally, we have a wide variety of accessories for these devices that include large charging bays and accessories for better communication. So whether that be covert communication with earpieces, potato mics that connect to devices, mounting kits, really quite a wide variety of accessories, and always something to keep in mind as you're looking at new equipment to go into the hands of your first responders or extended primary communities. So let's move on to control, right? So we've covered thus far security, coverage, devices. Let's really take a look at control and why this is such an important component to FirstNet is really we want to empower the community to be able to be as self-reliant as possible in times of crisis and not need to come to others to try to provide them priority access. When an incident takes place, you want things to be active and ready to go as soon as possible, and as many tools at your fingertips to react and respond as quickly as possible. So first and foremost, let's talk about local control. So local control is a website that you will be provided administrative access to when you sign up for FirstNet service. You can have multiple users that have access into this system defined by you as an organization, and the ability to have varying roles and administrative responsibilities associated with those administrators. One of the main differentiators of local control is that it will empower you to have network status and usage information. So this is typically data that is held very close to the vest by commercial wireless carriers, but in natural disasters where potentially you're going to have some infrastructure damage that has taken place due to the storm, you want to be able to have real-time and immediate notification of where your areas potentially of network degradation have taken place, and to be able to have access to that information immediately versus needing to try to go through AT&T directly or your carrier directly to try to find out more about the status of the network that you need to respond in. So you'll have immediate access, the ability to set up alerts and triggers should you have any type of degradation that's taking place within the network. Again, typically information that's held very closely to the vest, but our FirstNet customers will have immediate access to this. Local control is also a wonderful system for being able to manage and have access to all of your service and billing information, to tour through the available applications, to access training, really kind of a one-stop shop for all things that you may need with regard to FirstNet service. The next thing would be your incident management portal. So incident management portal is designed only for our primary FirstNet users, and it empowers them to create an incident. It's where you have the ability to then go in and decide who has various levels of priority. Again, everyone's going to have at least baseline level of priority, but if you need to reallocate or define further levels of priority, you can do so within this incident management portal or have them predefined. So as you set up service, you may want your chiefs and captains to maybe have a higher level of priority automatically. But if an incident takes place that's outside of the norm, or maybe different individuals need to have a higher level of priority, you can certainly do that within this incident management portal. It's a direct link off of your local control. Takes less than about a minute to set up an incident, and once that incident has been created, it will automatically clear band 14 in your area only for public safety. It'll also empower you to uplift any of your extended primary community. So anyone that has a FirstNet SIM in their device and is a part of the extended primary community, you can easily update them. There are ways to upload or uplift via Excel spreadsheets, so being able to do large bulk uploads, have your site already predefined with your community where you can just check a few boxes and immediately uplift them should the need arise. One thing to note about incident management, when you create an incident, by default, it will only last 24 hours, or the longest period of time that you can create an incident for is 24 hours. You can very easily clone an incident. Obviously, we understand certain incidents are going to go beyond a 24-hour cycle, but just by default, we've kept it in that kind of pinpointed location. And again, administrators can very easily clone an incident if they need to maintain the additional levels of priority or the uplift of their extended primary community for extended periods of time. And then finally, customer support. So for FirstNet service, you have 100% US-based, 24/7, 365 dedicated customer care. The customer care agents that were recruited into our FirstNet program were our most tenured, really went through some pretty rigorous qualifications to be able to come into this new program, and they're very proficient at being able to resolve and provide assistance to your organization. Should you need to access deployables or any of that, you have the ability to call in directly and get the processes started, with very, very low wait times for being able to gain access to a support representative. And then finally, we've got a large amount of training accessible to you, many different flexible options for either on-demand training in your local control portal, skilled leader-led, so actually having someone come on site and do training with you, online environments, and really try to focus on taking you through implementation capabilities as well as further adoption. Once you become a FirstNet client, what other advantages can you start to take advantage of? That really brings us to innovation. So innovation within the FirstNet program is really looking to drive the app developer community to build more purpose-built applications for our first responder community. We already have over a dozen that we are in process of giving full certification to. We are taking very seriously the security requirements associated of these partners and ensuring that their applications are very relevant to our first responder community. We'll have an app catalog as any of these devices hit their FirstNet certification. You'll have access to know who they are so that you can understand if you are looking to deploy a solution that is safe and accessible for you. Also, we highly encourage you, if you guys have any homegrown applications within your city, counties, or states, to please submit those to the App Developer Program. We are actively working and making sure that those also receive the required levels of security clearance so that you can continue to utilize those solutions. Keep in mind that, if it does not have a FirstNet certification, that does not preclude you from being able to use that application. We're just hoping to help guide your community in understanding what the most appropriate and safest options for you are within the marketplace. And our app developer program. So we've already hosted many hackathons, again, really trying to drive the developer community away from the consumer marketplace and games and things of that nature into really building applications that will empower our first responder community. Really looking at more situational awareness applications, applications for ease of access into records management, really focusing on wearables and GPS technology and how to pair those and sensors into your operations to really empower you with the most available information as possible. We have different silos, so we've got different developers trying to work on not only law enforcement, but fire and EMS, and really trying to help this community have more accessible and powerful applications for utilization. So in summary, the FirstNet solution, right? I think the main core components to keep in mind and to know is that availability and priority service, making sure that our first responder community is able to utilize and leverage our powerful wireless networks to the fullest of their ability and with a higher level priority than a standard commercial user. The ability to elevate or uplift your community of non-first responders that support you in your efforts so that you guys can seamlessly work together through times of crisis. The build outs that are taking place to really enhance and augment coverage, not only in our urban environments, but also with a very strong focus on our rural communities. Looking at a very, very highly secure network, one that will have improved communications and continue to streamline towards better interoperability across jurisdictions. And finally, that is affordable and accessible to you through some of the lowest rates that are available within a wireless environment to really empower you guys to leverage the technology to its fullest. So if we're talking about next steps, what are some things to think about for your individual agency on how to start making the next steps towards moving to FirstNet service? So first and foremost, you want to engage with your FirstNet specialist. I am a FirstNet specialist who is dedicated to PCS. So if you are a PCS customer, we would love to have either a conference call or even a face-to-face presentation for you to really dive in and understand what your current mobile strategy is and how FirstNet will fit into that landscape. It's really important to think about what features are you looking to implement first? What endpoints, right? Is it your in-vehicle routers or mobile phones or tablets or air cards that are distributed? What are those deployment capabilities that you're looking to get out there so that we can really get a better understanding of your agency device needs and what platforms are going to make the most sense for you? And so those are the main components that we wanted to cover today. Accessible to you, we do have Todd Levin. He is an area sales manager for PCS Mobile. Again, a wealth of knowledge, trained up on FirstNet, and him and I work shoulder to shoulder. There are also some additional PCS Mobile localized sales representatives that can come in and assist you. Again, really taking a strategic look at what capabilities you have today, what technology and equipment you have today, and how we best set you up for success in the future with the FirstNet network. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions. We've got about 15 minutes to answer any questions that are out there. So Dave, have any come in on the question line?
Yes, actually, there's been 6 questions that have come in.
Okay.
Does FirstNet fully interoperate with Verizon's public safety solution?
So to answer that question, right, so voice calls and data transactions can take place across carriers with FirstNet just like they do in a commercial environment. However, the priority and preemption capabilities of FirstNet would be relegated to the FirstNet line. So if you are trying to reach out to a Verizon user during a time of crisis, their device may not have a priority or preemption capability within their network. So while you would be able to gain access to network resources to try to engage the call, will that user that does not have those similar levels of priority within the Verizon network, will their call be able to get through, or will you be able to get through to them is really more of the salient question. But as far as day-to-day interactions, FirstNet is not, closed in the way that, you can't make a call outside of the FirstNet network. That's absolutely not the case. But the priority and preemption capabilities that really empower you to ensure that those resources are accessible and available to you are what is distinguished and different about the FirstNet connections.
Well, the next one is, we have a very limited broadband service, which limits our ability for growth. With expansion of public broadband be installed in conjunction with the Band 14.
Absolutely. So as we are climbing towers and putting up Band 14, we're updating LTE mechanisms within our towers, as well as putting up technologies to support the evolution to 5G. So yes, climb the tower once, put up as many technology or as much technology as possible. I can't speak specifically to your geography, not knowing where the question is coming in, but we would really highly encourage you to connect with PCS and let us kind of have a more detailed conversation with you around your coverage story, how it may fit into your state's 5-year build-out plan, and be able to provide a more succinct answer for you with respect to your specific geography.
And another one, our distribution slide net motion, which we work with, only reflected Panasonic equipment. Will this new system work with our Motorola and Coban systems?
I will have to say, I personally, that goes a little bit beyond my technical knowledge. So I would like to take that question offline and source someone who has a bit more technical expertise than I, specifically as it relates to our Motorola partnership. We do have a partnership with Motorola, so I can get an answer for you, but unfortunately I don't have it off the top of my head and would not want to provide any kind of incorrect information. So unfortunately, we'll have to take that one offline.
Yeah, there was another one that dealt with a specific region in Nevada. Mm-hmm. I think we could take that one offline as well.
But it's a little bit hard. I am a nationwide resource by the nature of the fact that I work with some of our dealer partners who have nationwide presence. But I don't have right off of the top of my head specifics of state plans for each geographic region, but do have access to that information. So really would love to be able to dive in deeper with any of the attendees that have questions regarding coverage in their area, how they fit in from a 5-year plan perspective. Absolutely can get you that information, but want to make sure that it's not just myself, but that we're also pulling in the resources that are 100% dedicated to your geography, who can speak most efficiently regarding those coverage questions. The main things I can say is that I know that coverage build out is already actively underway in all 50 states. We've touched over 2,500 towers to date and growing, with plans for more than 10,000 to be touched by the end of 2019. So really some pretty aggressive build outs taking place, and can certainly talk to anyone attending the call at a more personal level as it relates to their geography. Just connect with Todd and myself, and we will start to coordinate those conversations.
I think there's 2 more. Maybe we can answer these. Will FirstNet accept body cam video feeds to a specific storage location or cloud?
Yes, so you do have the ability to pull in video feeds within the FirstNet network. One of the core components is we do not throttle, and really want you to be able to leverage as much high speed and high bandwidth information as possible. We do have to take a look at a couple of security components associated with that data. There is the potential of needing to make sure that we have in place an APN or private mobile connection to ensure the security of that information as it flows across the network. And if we are looking to access it remotely, again, those private mobile connections enable us to really reach out to that endpoint versus it having a dynamic or ever-changing IP address. So there certainly, we just have to look at the architecture of your current solution and where that information is coming from, and make sure that we cross all of our D's and cross all of our T's and dot all of our I's to ensure that we've set that up with the highest levels of security that are required for the RFP.
And then last question, is FirstNet going to be located in areas where AT&T currently has no coverage?
100%, yes. The state plan build-outs include over 1,000 new site builds And so, yes, absolutely, we are pushing forward, and even in places, again, that are rural communities that don't really have potentially a ton of populace, but are still communities in which our public safety community need to service and need to be able to have reliable connections in. So the answer to that is 100% yes. And that should come into fruition within a 5-year period. And again, we can take it, if you've got a specific location that you're really curious about, we can absolutely get engaged and take a look at that state plan with you, with the FirstNet principal consultant, and get a better gauge for you on when that is anticipated to have service for you.
Well, I think that's the last question. Well, thank you, Sarah. We appreciate it very much. Thanks, everyone, for participating. There will be a recording of the webinar, which will be on the PCS mobile website and available for anyone who may have missed it or would like to refer back to it. So I think that's it. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. I hope it was valuable information and really enjoyed spending some part of my afternoon with you. Have a great day.